Good morning, maybe good afternoon to a few people, and I would like to thank you for taking the time to join us Test House today for our live webcast. In joint collaboration and partnership with both Microsoft and Comparex, today's session will be on automated testing using Visual Studio 2013 Coded UI. We will present an overview of Coded UI, creating simple tests, and explore data-driven testing. I am proud to be joined today by my colleague Peter Manwaring, our Visual Studio consultant for Test House. The presentation will last approximately 40 minutes, plus Q&A at the end. Before I pass you over to my colleague Peter, please feel free to type in your individual questions on your Q&A pod now or during the presentation. We will answer most of the questions if time permits. A full screen is also available at the top of your screen, which would be useful when Peter will run his demo. So without further delay, I now pass you over to my colleague, Peter.
Well, hello everyone. As been mentioned, my name is Peter Manwaring. I'm a Visual Studio consultant here at Test House. Just to tell you a little bit about the company. We were formed back in 2000. We've got headquarters in London, although we do have a presence throughout the world, in India and United Arab Emirates. We've had a long association with Microsoft. We've been partners with them for several years. And basically our company offers testing solutions, either consultancy or we can help you out with your testing strategy, and also the whole software development process as regards, especially to help with your quality, to make sure you deliver good quality software in good time. So that's basically what our company is all about. We've had some varied clients over the years, all different sizes, different types of business, from banks to environmental type of work, to the entertainment business. So it's many different kinds of systems we've helped to improve people's quality. So let's dive into the agenda then to see what we're going to talk about today on today's webinar. We're going to have a short introduction, then a quick overview of the whole Visual Studio kind of world and what Visual Studio can do and what it can offer very quickly. Then we're going to have a few demos, creating a basic Coded UI test to give you an idea of what it can do and what it looks like and what's involved. We're also going to do a little bit of exploring around data driving, which is a technique to really make your tests very much more powerful. So you can vary the inputs and outputs of the test that you expect, and you can do many tests in just by writing one test. And you can use your data to execute it many times under different circumstances. So it's a very powerful technique. Then I'm going to do another demo that's, if you know about MTM, that's Microsoft Test Manager, you know that you can do test cases and action recordings. And you can actually use those action recordings as a resource to help you begin your coding UI efforts. So that's quite a useful thing to be able to do. And I'll be running you through how to do that as well. And then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So all of that should put in the time. So here's an overview of Visual Studio then. As you can see in the middle there, you've got Team Foundation Server. Team Foundation Server is really just the repository of all the data that comes in throughout the life cycle of your project, your software project, and it makes software project management and reporting very much easier because all the information is available in one place to be reported upon and for anyone to look at who's got permissions. Also, communication is much more improved rather than the old traditional way of relying on emails or spreadsheets to store your information. All the information is automatically captured within Team Foundation Server, so it's available to anybody to look at any time. There's also the usual things you would expect in a development suite within Visual Studio. That is, you've got your requirements management. It's very good for version control. Okay, lots of organisations use version control very widely, but there's much more you can do with it. There are some processes that are there for you to help you go through the ALM process, but it's all customizable as well. So if you've got some special requirements for your particular organisation, you can put those customizations in. It's very good for doing builds, and do build automation, and you can build straight from Visual Studio and deploy on your test environment, that kind of thing. There's a lot you can do with the build. We don't have time to go into any of this in this session, but all of these things are very mature, and they all work together, importantly, to help your teams really work together. You've got several options when it comes to accessing the information. Okay, one of the most popular ones is SharePoint. So obviously, being a Microsoft product, they come together very well, and you can get very good dashboards and reports from SharePoint right out of Team Foundation Server. So the information you see on those dashboards are completely up to date. Also, increasingly, web access is becoming more important. So you don't need to have Visual Studio installed on your machine. You can just go in through a browser, and with the correct access rights set up, you can do a lot within the Visual Studio world. You can actually put stuff into Visual Studio and read information out. So you can do a lot with the web access as well. Also, Microsoft Project is very good to be connected to Team Foundation Server if your project managers like using that particular package. And everything is based on the SQL server, so database. So everything is stored in there. So there's a lot you can do within the Visual Studio world, including visual virtual machines to do your lab management and your testing. But you don't have time to think about all of that today, but that's just a flavour of what you can do with Visual Studio. What kind of licenses do you need to do Visual Studio, Coded UI? Ultimate or Premium, really. So it's sort of the higher end of the licensing scale that you need to be able to use this particular facility. But it really does shorten the life cycle of your testing. So with this particular tool, you can save a lot of time, especially with your regression testing. I've been to organisations where it's taken months, literally, to go through a full regression cycle on a manual basis. But if you can do your coded UIs, then you can really save a lot of time doing that and increase your release times and get your product to market much quicker. So we're going to look at creating a basic coded UI test. So you just start up Visual Studio and you create a new kind of project. Testing now is a kind of project, just as development is a kind of project, but they sit inside your team project collections and your different individual collections, so that you can see your testing projects and your development projects side by side. And I think that's a really healthy way of viewing your testing to sort of just really enforce the point that testing is an important thing to do, and so they're both treated as projects. So once you get down into the creating project area, what you're looking for is, as you can see there, the testing side. You can create your project in several languages. The ones we tend to use here are C#. So you can see C# and test, and under that you can see you've got Coded UI project. So you can create a new Coded UI project very easily through that menu system. Then you have this window, which we'll be looking at a little bit more detail later. You have the option of creating a Coded UI from scratch or using an action recording from Microsoft Test Manager. Okay. For this next little section, we'll be creating one from scratch, so you can see how it all works. And then when you tell the computer or tell the system that you want to create a new Coded UI test, this little window will pop up. Everything will minimize, but this little window will pop up. And it's basically your control panel. It's called the Coded UI Test Builder. And it's all you need to record a Coded UI test. You actually record the test with these buttons. So there's a record button to start and stop the tests. As you'll see in the demonstration, it's a good idea to split your recording up into different sections, different methods, rather than do one big recording, because that gives you a lot more flexibility down the line to do some customizations. Okay, so that's a good tip straight away. Split up your recordings into different methods. You can have a look at the recorded steps that you've done so far. It does quite a good job at writing in English the kind of actions that were recorded. Okay, there's something called a crosshair tool. That's to add your assertions or what it is you're actually trying to test, and then you have to specify exactly what element or what attribute of that control you're trying to test against. Okay, but you'll see that in the demonstration, and then you can generate the code, which is actually the coded UI. The coded part of it is actually turning those recordings into code. And then when you finish your recordings, you go and look at that code, update it using techniques that we don't have time for in this session. But it really is very versatile, and you can change the way that the system works and make decisions based on what's happening inside the code, get different error messages out of it, write to a log file, that kind of thing. So there's a lot you can do if you know how to code in C#. That's the drawback. You do need some coding experience and knowledge to be able to make this work to its full capacity. So here's an example of trying to create an assertion. If we want to make sure that login button, for example, is a particular color, let's say, for example, what I can do is I can drag that crosshair tool onto that particular control on the interface. Then I'll get a list of all the different attributes of that control, one of which will be color, and I can say make sure the color is a certain value at this point in the test. And then when you rerun the test, the system will look at that control and look at that attribute and say, is it what is expected? Okay, if it is, it will carry on. If it isn't, it will mark that as a failure on that particular assertion. And as before, you can go in and later on you can actually change the way the assertions work by going in and changing the code that it produces for you. And this is just a screenshot of actually going through that process. You've got a lot of different options when you're making your assertions just by using the interface here while you're doing the recording. Are equal, are not equal, contain a certain string, that kind of thing. But again, I'll just stress the point that if you're not happy with any of those options, you can go in later and change it via coding. So we have our first demo then, creating a basic coded UI test. This will just walk you through creating a simple coded UI test.
So now I'm going to demonstrate how to create a simple coded UI test in Visual Studio. I've already attached to a solution, demo solution. So in order to create a project which is going to hold our coded UI test, I have to go File, New Project. And you see it's C# and Test and coded UI test project. I'm going to call it coded UI test demo. Okay, I'm going to put it into the current solution and say OK. Here we have the window that allows us to create our recording from scratch or use an existing action recording, so we're going to make one from scratch. And up comes the coded UI test builder, which we can move. That has the controls which allows us to actually do a coded UI test recording. So the first thing I want to do is open up the calculator. That's what I'm going to use to do my test. So we start some recording. Launch the calculator. And that's all I actually want to do for the first step. Now, so I pause the recording there. Now we can look at the steps that have been recorded, and it says launch the calculator, so that looks fine. and I'm going to make a method just out of that one piece of recording, and I'm going to call it open app, and here we can give it a description. That will go as a comment in the actual code when the system generates it for us, and we add and generate the code there. Okay, now I just want to do some mathematics, so I'll start another piece of recording, make sure that the calculator has focus, and now I just need to type in a number, let's say 7, and that's all I want to do for that particular piece of recording as well. You can look at the steps that we've made in this recording, and I'm going to make a method out of that. Call it left number because it's going to be the left hand side number in the equation we're going to do. I won't do a method description at this time for all of them. Okay. The piece of recording, make sure the calculator has focus. At this time I'm going just to press the add button and pause it. You can see how we make up our recordings. It's just a series of methods which houses these little bits of recording. And you'll see why it's a good idea to not put too much recording into one particular method and split it up. Another bit of recording. Call this right number, and generate that to the code. And finally have the equals button, which actually gives us the result. I'll call that equals. Okay. Now we need to do something else here to actually make this test do something useful. We have to actually make sure that the correct answer appears in the calculator. So to do what we call an assertion, we use this control, which we can drag and drop, and you can see it highlights different parts of the interface as I drag it around. But we're obviously interested in the window here which contains the answer, so I'll just release the control, and straight away we get a list of all the attributes of that particular text control. But what we're interested in, of course, is the display text, which contains the answer. So that's going to be the focus of our test. So as soon as I highlight that, I set add assertion, and then you get lots of different options on here. So it says here are equal or are not equal, or if it's a bit of text you can say contains. You can put a value in here if you like, but it's got 8 already, so I can change that. I'll take the value which is already there. I can put in a message which is reported if the test fails. Okay, that gives you a bit of a hint of what's gone wrong. So we can just say OK to that, and then hit this button again to add the method into our coded UI test. I'm going to leave it as assert method 1, but I could change that to another meaningful name. And if you have obviously a lot of assert methods, that would make sense. Okay, one more thing I want to do. So I want to resume recording, and I'm going to close down the application. Pause, check that we've got the right thing, hit the close button, and then I'll just say close app as the name of our method. And that's all recording for the test, so I'll just close down the test builder, and Visual Studio comes back, and here you see within Coded UI Test 1, which I'll just make sure I save, you can see here within the test method, public void method, we have the entry points to all the methods that we recorded during that session. So we have the open app, the left number, the add numbers, right number. Now I can see if that test actually works straight away by right clicking it and run tests. And we should see the calculator spring up, do a calculation and then go away by itself. And it has done. And you see the test passed. So the test was successful, it ran successfully, and that's how to record a simple Coded UI test.
Well, that was a very basic Coded UI test, had to do a recording. So it's very straightforward to actually do the recording. The complexity comes in later if you want it to do something else. So you need a bit of coding knowledge. You see, it writes the code for you, and there's bits of code there which I couldn't show you at this time. Each of those method titles you can go off and you can actually see the code which sits behind those methods, and then you can update that code to do more complicated things. So we'll talk briefly now about data driving, or data-driven tests. You need an external data source or file to do this exercise. And the test will pick up your data file. It has a certain number of rows on it, and it will run through the test, however many rows there are, and plug in the different data from that data file at different points in the code that you specify. This will become clearer when we look at the demonstration. But there are several options you have for how that data is handled. You can run through it in a sequential manner. So this system will just start at the beginning, go to the end and stop. Or you can do a random selection of data rows from the data source, which is a good idea to run some tests like that, because it could be that that particular sequence of data hides a bug. So if you mix up the sequence of the data, then you can uncover those bugs. You have to do a little bit of programming again to make sure that the data comes into the test and is used in the correct manner, and we'll see how that works within the demonstration. Two bits of coding you have to do: one to get the data into the test, and one to actually make sure that the data is inserted in the correct place within the test. And there's one tip that you have to do, which you'll see in the demonstration. And if you don't remember to do this little action, then it can cause you some headaches, and things won't work quite the way you expect. But that will be pointed out within the demo, so you'll look out for that. You've got several options on what you can use for a data source. The simplest is probably a comma-separated value file that you can create in a spreadsheet program, like Excel, for example. You'll see that in the demonstration. But you can also use an XML file as well. And the system can handle reading an XML type format. And you can also connect a database to the test, which gives you an option to have a lot of data. So you can load up a database table with lots of data and then run back all that data through your test. And you don't have to use Microsoft. You can use any kind of database with an industry standard interface, and then you can use whatever kind of database you want that you happen to have and for your data source. Now, you're going to see a very simple usage of the data-driven technique, but you can actually do a lot more with it. You can change the way that your test runs. You can, if something happens on your system, you can make your application go down a different path, for example, or in the calculator example, you can, within your data file, you can, as well as the input and output numbers, you can actually put in the plus, minus, divide, for example, and so you can test all of the different functions. So you can do different button presses depending on what comes along within the data. So you can change which controls you manipulate through the data driving. So it really is a very valuable technique, and you can do a lot of data through that, a lot of testing through that. Those data files, once they're in your system, they're also quite easy to update as well. You can update that data quite easily, and you can also set things up to skip certain data lines quite easily as well, just by putting a tag against a data row. So a lot of flexibility. Once you've mastered it and you've done your programming, you can have different files to substitute in, and you can have a lot of flexibility in your test. So here comes a demonstration of data-driven tests. Okay, here it comes. Okay, so that's how to do data driving, and you can see it's quite simple once you get your data source set up. There's a little bit to get used to get to the programming side of things to make sure that the system connects to the data properly. But once you get the hang of it, it's very powerful. You can do a lot more things than was shown there. One more topic to look at, that's using action recordings. If you know about MTM, then you know that that's a manual testing tool, but you can do recordings using that tool just on the your interactions with the application under test, and you can use those action recordings as a starting point to do coded UI. Okay, so give you a good head start on your coded UI efforts, especially if you've been using MTM and you think about progressing onto these other more advanced kinds of testing. So based on test cases in NTM, they can once you've created them, they can be data driven as well. They're very good for automating your manual testing. So if you've got regression tests you do a lot, you can save a lot of time by using this technique. If you do data drive your tests in MTM, which you can do, I strongly suggest that you drop the data driving within MTM and create a separate data driving file, as you see in the demonstration. That gives you a lot more power and it's a lot easier to manage. And each step in the test case is transformed into one method within the coded UI test. Okay, and that will become clear in the demonstration. So we'll take a look at that demonstration right now.
So it takes makes a method out of each of the steps within the MTM case. So let's see if we can run this. It's using the action recording. Okay. So it's done that and it's passed it. But actually, as you can see here, there are no assertions, because it can't build assertions into the coded UI because there are no assertions within MTM. So what you have to do, you have to build your own assertion into the test. That's very easy. All you have to do is put a space in where you want the assertion to go, in this case just after the calculation. Then you can right click there and you can say generate code for coded UI. Now again, you have a choice. Do you want to use the test builder or use another action recording? I'm going to use the test builder. So the test builder pops up. Okay, so I need the calculator or the application that I'm testing. I'll need to put an assertion in here. And we do that, of course, using the crosshair tool. Drag and drop. Drag it over the control we're interested in. And here we have the same as before. You can see it's got all of the attributes of that particular text box. We're after display text and add an assertion based on that. And we know that the answer should be 8, so you can put 8 in there. And so, a message if it should fail. Okay. So now you just hit that button and we have another assertion method, which we could change if we wanted to, but we'll just add and generate. And that's all I want to do, so I can close everything down now, close down the builder. And you can see here I have an assert method 1 put into the coded UI at the right place. So now I have actually a test against that, so now let's run this again and see if it works. And you see the solid green line means that it's finished, and this time it has finished and it's all correct, but this time there is a check in place to make sure that the correct mathematics has come out of the calculator and that the application is actually functioning properly. So that's how to create a simple coded UI test out of a MTM action recording. Once you've made a coded UI test out of an action recording, you can go and associate the coded UI test back to the test case within Microsoft Test Manager. I'll show you how to do that, but before I do, I'll just show you a quick trick. You see over here you've got your Test Explorer, and when you have a few tests going, they're all going to have the same name, so it can get a bit confusing about what test you're actually looking at. So to change the name in the Test Explorer, this is the bit you have to change. So you change the coded test AC, for example. Okay, so now if I run this test again, if I right click, run tests, it's been successful because everything's here, but here you can see it's got the name here that I placed here, so you can easily identify what test you're looking at in the Test Explorer by changing this name here. So how do you go about associating this coded UI back to the test case within MTM, Microsoft Test Manager? Well, if I go here to my Team Explorer and look in my work items, I can see I've got my test cases query already set up, so I can open that. And this is the test case from MTM where I made the action recording from. I took it from to create a coded UI test. So if I open that, you see here associated automation, that tab. If I then click this ellipse button, I can now look at all the coded UI tests which are in the solution which I have open, and this is the one I'm interested in, the one we made from this particular action recording. If I just say OK to that, then all the details of this coded UI are now associated back to this test case. So if I save that and close that down, go back into here within MTM, If I do a refresh to make sure, come in here and you can see all the details of the coded UI test are now stored within the test case within MTM. Okay, so that's how to deal with test cases and make coded UI tests out of action recordings.
Well, hopefully you saw from that gives you a good head start at your automation efforts, especially if you've been using MTM to do your manual testing. You can go ahead and use any recordings you've done to start your coded UIs as well. Well, that about wraps up the webinar for today. Just to tell you something more about what Test House can do for you. We offer consultancy. We can actually go on site and help you your testing efforts as well to carry out the testing, but we will also offer consultancy. And as part of that, there's something called a DTDPS, that's the Developer Tools Deployment Planning Service, and that's free consultancy days that you can get from buying Microsoft licenses for different products. You get a certain amount of free days, and then a partner such as us can go in and ask you questions about your development lifecycle and suggest ways you can improve to help the quality of your products and the speed with which you can deliver them. You can also find time to do some other consultancy as well, like training, for example, on some of the things you've seen. We also do functional testing. Performance testing is becoming more and more important with the internet, so we can help you make sure your products perform to a satisfactory level under load, with lots of different people logging at the same time, for example. And we also do training on this technology as well. All around the Microsoft world, we do training in the testing side of things, particularly manual testing, automation testing, load testing. So if there's any training you think you can need, get in contact and we can probably help you. But with that, I'm going to hand you back to Melanie.
Thank you very much, Peter. Just to continue on from Peter's last slide, so we also offer training solutions. We offer on-site, off-site, and online training on the Visual Studio product. And we have additional resources that you can see on your screen right now. So we are on LinkedIn. We have various groups on Microsoft groups on LinkedIn. We are also on Twitter. So we've got latest events, articles, and Microsoft webinars. We put it all on Twitter. We are also on Microsoft Pinpoint, so have a look at us in there. And we have some Visual Studio related videos on YouTube. So again, you can just have a look at those there. So for the next couple of minutes, we'll try and do a Q&A session. So please feel free to type in your questions on your individual Q&A pod. We will try and answer most of them. I know we are sort of running a few minutes late, but we'll try and take in a couple of questions, and then if you have any more, then we'll just take them offline. So please do type in your questions on your Q&A pod. Okay, so we have a few questions coming in. Okay, we'll start with the first question. What type of interfaces will coded UI test work with?
Well, being a Microsoft product, if you use Microsoft tools to develop your interfaces, then you shouldn't have any problem. Having said that, if you try to develop your own custom tools, okay, as some people do, then you can run into problems, or if you use other third-party tools, then again, that can cause issues. There are certain types of technology that coded UI uses to gain access to the controls on the interface and to see what state they're in for your tests, for example. There's one called MSAA, which is a Microsoft accessibility feature to help people with disabilities, for example. It uses that kind of facility to go in and control the interface, and also to get information out of the interface. If you use your own custom controls, you have to build that kind of flexibility into it. But if you just use standard Microsoft tooling, then there shouldn't be an issue. But it's always a good idea to do a proof of concept first, a little test to make sure that your interface is going to work with Coded UI before you actually jump in and decide to use that tool for your main automation.
Second question. Is it possible to have more than one data driving file in the same test?
Unfortunately, no, it's not. It would be quite useful under certain circumstances to be able to do that. There is a web testing tool which comes with Visual Studio, and you can do it with that web testing tool. But for Coded UI, because of the way the coding works, as you saw in the demonstration, each test can only have one data file associated with it. But there's always sort of a way around it. If you have two data files you want to use, then you can kind of merge them quite easily together in different columns, let's say, and then you attach those different columns to the parts of the test you want. You might end up with some repeating data within your data file, but you can always combine the data that's in the separate files into one file and use that to drive your test.
We'll take the last question, Peter. So the last question would be, can test be started from Microsoft Test Manager or MTM?
The answer to that is yes, it can. As you saw in the demonstration, you can associate a Coded UI back to a test case with an MTM. Okay, that's fairly straightforward. If you want to actually go ahead and launch a Coded UI from MTM, which is a manual testing tool, that can be done, but it takes a little bit more work because you need to set up a special testing environment to do that. Now, that can either be on a virtual machine, using virtual machines, or a physical box, but it does involve a little bit more work, which is kind of outside the scope of this particular discussion. But yes, it can be done.
Thank you very much. That concludes our Q&A session for today. Before we go, the recording will be available within the next couple of days. Before we go or move on any further, if you do have any further questions that you would like to ask Peter, please do email that to him. His contact details, the email address are on your screen. If you want to know more about the DT-DPS that Peter has mentioned, or to find out how many DT-DPS days or free consulting days your company is entitled to, please do send me or Peter an email, and we will come back to you with more detail. So thank you, Peter, for a valuable presentation today. Hope to see you all once again at our next session, the very last one for this month. It's next Tuesday, the September the 30th, same time. But our topic for this session will be on web performance testing, again using Visual Studio 2013. So thank you all very much for joining us this afternoon, and have a great day.